So
Yes.
R and Python both are open source, right? Both are free. You can download without paying any money. Although for enterprise licenses, you do have to pay some money, right? But I think for individual
Sure.
licenses, you don't have to pay anything, right? Uh, I also feel that both are easy to learn, actually. Now, what is easy is a bit subjective. Uh, now, to me, I
Very
think
subjective.
very subjective. Like for some people, probably one language may be easier than the other. But I think all the high-level languages are easier to learn, and compared to languages like C and C++, R and Python both are easier. I think most people will say that.
Hmm.
Right? If you want to add two numbers in C, you'll have to write some 6 to 7 lines of code. In Python and R, it is a one line of code, right?
Yes.
It's much
Yes.
easier
That's true.
that sense, that way, right? So both are easy to learn, and both are very popular languages among data scientists. When we started our career, right, 10 years back, SAS was the most used programming language by data scientists, our analytics professionals. SPSS was also quite popular. It was quite popular in many firms, many big firms. I
Yes.
don't think anyone is using SPSS. Well, there are some
No,
companies still using.
I was using SPSS modeler actually in my previous organization in SBI card because it's the very easy because you don't have to
Yeah,
write any code. It's a drag and drop kind of software.
right,
So I used to
right,
create decision tree using SPSS modeler.
right.
But it's very slow. So if you have
Yes.
a huge data set, you will really struggle a bit.
I have
So
also
it's
used
not preferred.
SPSS. I have also used
Yes.
SPSS in some companies I have worked for. But I think in most firms, I think they're now migrating to other tools like Python,
Correct. Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but SAS is still quite used in many places actually. I know many companies in London or in US, Middle Eastern countries as well, where SAS is still being used, especially by the big banks. They're still using,
Yes.
right?
I think in big banks, I think they are very reluctant to change their, the
Yes,
software and legacy system.
legacy
I think
systems.
yes, because generally you will see that the new age fintech companies are
Yes,
actually starting from. They don't have that legacy issue that they have to shift from that old software to
exactly.
new software.
Right.
So they are much faster to migrate to these things. But banks have a lot of I
Yeah,
think restriction in
yeah,
they're also very slow. They
yeah.
don't want to try something which is just has been launched, right? They want to
Right, right.
let it stay in the market, and
Yes,
before it comes to be some successful in the market, then only they want to try it.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. No, that's true. Actually, I've also experienced that. Change is a big thing in big organization and certainly in banks, which are highly regulated. Having said that, I have seen many banks, big banks in Europe, using Python or have started this initiative of popularizing Python among their data
Right.
scientists. So I think that's
Mhm.
also a good thing. And in non-banking
Yeah.
firms, I think it is easier to change. In big organizations in elsewhere, I think this has started, and it's only going to get bigger. I think open source is going to be more popular compared to the proprietary like SAS and MATLAB and SPSS.
Mhm.
I think, but there are some advantages of those softwares also, and we'll talk about that. I also have a slide on that. That what's the
Sure.
advantages of SAS, for example, compared to Python or R? Okay,
Yes.
yeah, and there are many differences between Python and R. Okay, the
Mm.
quite a few actually. The most basic ones are Python is a general purpose programming language. Python was created by someone from Netherlands, by the way. Someone from Netherlands. He created it in 1989. But that time when he created it as a general purpose programming language. That means, you use that language to write software. Okay. to develop website, to develop web applications, these things, right? It wasn't really developed for data analytics, for data analysis, data handling, data engineering, right? So that
Correct.
time, that was the purpose. Okay. And general purpose programming, because it can be used for many things, right? It can be used for data science, for web application, for mobile application development, game development, automation activities, and you name it, right? All the IT activities that you do in a given organization, you can use, for most of the things you can use Python, right? But that's not the
Yes.
case with R, right? R has a very
Yes.
different purpose when it was created in 90s. I think in 1992 it was created in some university in New Zealand, if I'm not wrong. Okay, it was created for statistician. It was created by statisticians, right? So it was developed for statistical analysis and not intended for, let's say, web application development or a front end development. Although I know that many R users, which are very fan of R programming, they will argue that R can be used also for, let's say, website development. Right? People
Yeah.
have developed website for that, but I think that's not the most nice thing about this language, R programming language, where you don't have to use that for mobile application development and web application development. Okay, so that's the most big difference between R and Python, and hence you see the usage is also becoming more um, versatile for, in this case of Python, where in the case of R, even if you use it for data analysis, you have to use another language for your front end development, for your for other things, for example, right? You cannot use that for end to end development. So that's an issue with R. I've also faced that, where I built a model in R, but in order to create a front end, we did use R for front end development also. But that wasn't quite nice. Maybe we are not that good users of R front end development. So we took help of people who developed a front end in .NET, which is a Microsoft technology. So I think these are some
Okay.
of the main differences, but there are many other differences also, right? But for someone who is a beginner, right, beginner in, she may be thinking that what is best for me, right? What is your opinion? Which language is better if somebody has to learn from scratch and
Okay.
somebody is a
So see,
beginner?
the thing is actually for us, who have started his career, let's say 10 years back, right?
Yeah,
So we have two types of problem. Okay, we are a beginner as well as we are a legacy problem. We have the legacy problem because
right,
we started with SAS.
right.
We learned everything SAS. Now we have to actually move to this,
Yes,
open source language, because many of the companies are actually using these days these things,
yeah,
and many of the new models which is being developed, right? They
yeah,
tend to be available in these open source softwares very easily as
right,
compared to proprietary software. They take a lot
right.
of time to develop libraries and models and build those things.
Yes,
So I think I think in my view it is advisable that when you are thinking of moving to data science domain, better to start with R or Python. Now,
yes,
since we are dealing with the question whether to
yes,
learn R or Python, I have learned both. Okay,
yeah,
so when I was in Target, I used to learn R because at that time Target had planned to migrate to R.
R. Okay.
Okay, so I learned R, but I didn't like the user interface of R. Okay, so I used to work with R Studio. At that
Yeah,
time, I learned a lot of things, but when I but 3-4 years back, I started using Python. I found it much easier. Okay, so the coding and everything, there are still some issues, but I think the Python is much better in my view, and
yeah,
I would also advise that and given that the vast usage of Python, right?
yeah,
So even if you are going in a different vertical other than data science, this language
yeah,
can help you. If
yeah,
you understand the basic, just few libraries you will have to learn for the web development, few libraries for data scraping from web.
right.
So you can do anything. Just that you have to understand the
Everything.
basic.
Yeah.
You learn those extra libraries which is required. If someone is
Right.
coming from, let's say, web development background in Python, he
Right.
just have to learn NumPy and Pandas. He will be
Exactly.
comfortable
So
using
if you are
data.
already, yeah. So if you
Correct.
are already familiar with some other programming languages, like for example Java
Yes,
or
especially Java.
.NET
Yes, yes.
Data, .NET, C, C++, any other languages, you will be more comfortable with Python compared to
With
say
Python
R,
as
because
compared to.
R could be a bit intimidating initially.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
Python is much better in that way. And in many countries where when you do an undergrad, right, you start learning a programming language, you start with C program or even Fortran. Fortran and C are more complicated languages compared to Python, right? And if you have the knowledge of C or C++, I think it is much easier to start with Python. And R is not very programming friendly in a way, because it's my opinion. It's not a very general opinion among people, but which is that it could be a bit intimidating for people who are new to programming. Okay, and that's why I also found this uh, in a forum where people say that R tends to be have a steeper learning curve. That means the initial learning curve is very steep. uh, you could struggle with the syntax and the output debugging is an issue there, but once you understand how it works, I think it is then quite easy. So initial
Yes,
days you will
I.
struggle with R more than Python, and also because Python is used in more places nowadays than R. I think
Hmm.
it is so. To me also, you should learn Python unless there is a reason for R. I think Python is preferred a preferred language compared to R in many places. And as a beginner, you should learn Python.
Yeah, so just wanted to, bring one, I think the case when I was using R to develop, support vector machine, okay?
Mhm.
And we were trying to develop a income estimation model using R because
Mhm.
the SBR was not very good with SAS, okay?
Yeah, yeah,
So I started searching for, a good article, how we can use it and, some content on YouTube.
yeah,
And it was so difficult to find the exact thing which I was looking for, right? How to
yeah,
set
right,
C value and all those things, right? The
right,
cost function and the performance was a huge problem. It was very slow.
yeah,
I mean, I was not working with a huge data set, but it was taking a lot of time to basically model it and give me the output.
yeah, yeah,
It used to take a lot of time, and it
yeah,
was really frustrating. So
yeah.
when
Not good with the
I have
data actually. R is not good
yes,
with
yes,
data.
correct. And when I have to do the same thing in Python now, I find that it is very faster, as
Yeah,
compared to R what I. So even from the practical purposes, when you are doing with the working with the huge data set, working with the model, it's I think
yeah.
much better to work with
Use
Python.
Python. I totally
Yes.
agree.
And
I
the
totally agree.
community support is also huge for Python, right?
Community
You will see
support
the
is huge actually on Stack Overflow or elsewhere,
get
right?
anything. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
you can
absolutely.
get
Yeah.
more help on
Yes.
Python compared to
Mm.
say R, because I think the user base is not that huge for
Yeah.
R, and hence the
And I
community
think
support is
last couple of years, the usage of Python has increased like,
increase a lot. That's
exponentially.
true.
Yes, exponentially. You'll see
Yeah,
the usage of Python is maybe at the number one as compared to
yeah,
other
it has
programming
increased
language.
exponentially.
Yes.
We will see a graph actually in the next slide where there was a survey on the popularity of programming languages. I think our Python is a winner there, second most programming language there, and R is I think at
Mhm.
12th rank, something like that. We'll see that slide. Okay, but there are more
Yes.
differences. For example, Python can handle massive data. R is not that good
Mm.
with it. You have already discussed that. You mentioned about your own experience,
Correct. Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And Python is also better for more advanced model, deep learning models, AI models. These many of these libraries are pretty new actually. Even algorithms, some of the algorithms are quite new. You
Correct.
do not have many of these packages for R actually, or not as well developed as the packages in Python. So from that point of view, I think Python is a winner, right? Um, Having said that, I think R is a winner when it comes to statistical analysis, because for a lot of the scientific research, right, you need very highly theoretical sort of statistical model development. And for many of these theoretical models, you may not find a Python package. And for that, R is better. So if you are a data scientist, let's say you are working in geographical research or like GIS, geographical or geospatial sort of data analysis, or you are working in more scientific research, such as some advanced physics research, advanced medical science research, even pharmaceutical research. For example, in control trial, those statistical trials in pharmaceutical companies, there you will use some of these algorithms, uh, which for which you can find packages in R, but not in Python. So in those areas, R is a winner in my view.
Correct, correct.
One other difference is that, like, if you want to do non-statistical tasks like web scraping or running workflow, those things, very or natural language processing, those things, I think Python is any day better, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I think, but I think in current times, maybe I think after this chat GPT instance, what I'm seeing that, there is a lot of talk about this NLPs, right?
Yeah.
And AI. So, even from the job market point of view, you are going to see huge demand of AI, guys, and especially those who are trained in deep learning and the NLP. So it becomes your preferred language to learn Python, because these libraries are actually there in Python only. So if you have to work with those models, you'll have to learn Python. You'll have to learn the usage of those libraries, like TensorFlow, PyCaret, and everything.
Yeah, agree. This is what I was talking about. There's survey where people were asked this question: which language we use, and the most popular language still is C, and the second popular is Python. So this survey was in 2021.
Can you put a little bit of zoom, because the numbers are not clearly visible? Zoom it a little bit. Possible to zoom it.
Okay.
Yes. Much
better.
Much better. Yes, I can see. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So C is at the top.
Yeah. But see the percentage addition and decrease in C's users and Python, right? So
more and more people now using Python.
Yes, in a year or two, it might be the number one language.
Exactly.
The way,
probably already. Right. I do not know what is the status in 2023, but it's probably already the number one. And you see the R, right? R is at 13th. And again, the number of the change is negative. So but expected though. Yeah. I was wondering about MATLAB actually. It's there at 15, but there's no SAS. You know why MATLAB is there in the list and not SAS? Because MATLAB is very popular among engineers. People like civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, they use MATLAB. Even in scientific research, such as biological research, physics, applied physics research. So academicians use MATLAB a lot. Whereas SAS is primarily for statisticians, econometricians, primarily for those people. Hence, the user base is significantly less compared to MATLAB. And there is no SPSS. Well, SPSS is barely a tool, right? I don't know what it is. Programming language. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll go to the next slide. Okay.
Yeah, but this information is really helpful for people to decide which language to learn, because looking at the usage and all, they will understand. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you need to get a job, right? You need to get a job, make a living out of it, right? So it's not like something is better than all. Because people take it very emotional sometimes. If you are an R user and say no, Python is better, they take it very personally, and they tend to defend that. I have discussed this with one of my former colleague who was a fan of R programming language, and he was like, okay, no, R can do everything that Python can do. So, why is Python better than R? But the thing is that if you're a beginner, you don't want to waste your time, in this debate. You rather learn something which will help you to get a good job and earn a good living, right? And in
Correct,
that,
correct.
right? So from that point of view, I think Python is any day better, right? In my personal view, although nothing wrong with learning both. If you can learn both, that's even better. I would